Mr. Taub and Ms. Van Giesen. Also joining us is Building Commissioner Tom Evers. And is Jen Higgins on? Well, Jen is our new secretary, and I hope to welcome her tonight to her first meeting. I thought she was going to be here, but she is the mother of a young child, so I don't know. Her schedule may be erratic. At any rate, we have 3 items for consideration. But before we begin, I need to make a personal declaration, and that is, you may recall that last year we had a case involving Nauset Marine, and there was some discussion about, oh, there's Jen. Jen, welcome to the meeting. It's a great pleasure to welcome to her first meeting as our board secretary, Jen Higgins. Jen and I have been working together for a couple of weeks now, but for the rest of you board members, here's your chance to see and meet with Jen. Jen, it's a pleasure to have you join us this evening.
Thank you. It's nice to meet all of you and be part of it. I'm sorry I have a cold, so I don't sound great.
Well, you sound fine to me. You sound great. Having an enthusiastic recording secretary, doesn't matter how you sound.
That's
Jen,
right.
We're delighted to have you with us.
Thank you.
You may recall that we had an application by Nauset Marine a year ago, and there was a full discussion about who could, should, and should not sit on that application. And the applicant had asked if any members were had used the services of Nauset Marine. There was some feeling on the board that if you were a customer of Nauset Marine, you should not sit on the case. I didn't object sufficiently, but I was a customer. I am a customer of Nauset Marine, so I recused myself. This evening, we find myself in a similar predicament. Whereas at Nauset Marine, I knew no one. I didn't know anyone in management or ownership. I was just an anonymous customer whose small boat was serviced at Nauset Marine. This evening, I am also a customer of Aries Pond Boatyard. And while I only have a passing acquaintance with Tony Davis, I think that the precedent I've established, sadly, I think now, is that I need to recuse myself since Mr. Davis has weighed in on this case. And I think that the conditions which required me to recuse myself and Nauset apply here, only maybe a little more particularly. So with that, I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion of the first case, which is case number 2177, that of Thomas and Teresa Healy. And I ask that Vice Chairman Lynn Eicholt chair the meeting.
I will do that. Everybody else, are there any other conflicts that we should know about? If not, then we will go ahead. So Thomas and Teresa Healy have applied for a special permit to build over 4,000 square feet and a 2-car garage and a pool house. And the property is at 36 Aries Lane, map 62, parcel number 48. I will ask Mr. Healy, who's with us, is there anybody representing you, or will you speak to this application?
I will speak to the application.
Okay, go ahead.
We've been here for 8 years, full-time for the last 4. We currently don't have any garage on the property, and we're in desperate need of that. We do have a pool, and we would like to get a pool house as well. That's pretty much the long and short of it.
Let me ask members of the board, are there questions about this application? I have a couple, but I wanted to let other people go ahead.
I didn't hear the last thing the gentleman said after he said they wanted to build a garage, something about a pool.
A pool house.
A pool house. Okay.
Right.
any other questions? I will start a couple. One is you're going to somewhat over 4,200 square feet. What is the square footage of the current house?
It's under 4,000.
Right,
It's about 3,800 square feet.
so just slightly under, okay.
Right. And that was a pre-existing house
Mhm.
that was renovated.
Okay, okay. And in the area in which you live, are other properties sort of similar size that and what you're looking to build?
Everyone's set back, so it's a little hard to ascertain. At the top of the hill are not the Davises, but the Magnavitas have a large accessory barn that I would say is similar scale or bigger. Other people have boathouses. Again, people are set back, so I can't really speak to it too precisely, but I would say, it's at the back end of the property and beyond the conservation area.
Mhm.
I would say that most people do have at least a 2-car garage. We share a Signet Lane, which has a 5-car garage, a 2-story 5-car garage, 10 feet away from our property. So that is a commercial building and very much, a similar scale.
You are changing the septic system. And I think on the plans, it said the septic system will be able to accommodate a 7 bedrooms,
Correct.
correct?
That was by East Cape Engineering,
Okay.
if you
okay.
go to that
And how many bedrooms currently do you have?
5.
5, okay. The other question is, for me, was on the plans. The first floor is basically clear, I think, right? Dressing room, bathroom, a gathering room, I'll call it, sort of living area. And the second floor of the property, it seemed that it was sort of a space at this point.
It is. It's to be determined, depending upon the septic arrangement. If it's such that we're not permitted for the engineered system, then it would revert to an office space and a gym, and storage. And that's why it's undefined at this point.
So, but it is possible with your intention is to potentially add bedrooms in the future.
1 bedroom. So when it's not a pool house, it could function as a guest house.
Okay. All right. That's my questions. Any other members have questions about the plans or need any more detail?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Nat.
What other approvals are needed and which of those have been achieved at this point?
Just the standard ones. A building permit.
So Board of Health for the septic system, Conservation Commission.
Yeah, conservation doesn't come into play. The Board of Health for an engineered system would have to get approved. And then a standard, it meets all the other zoning setbacks.
Okay, and the total lot area is 50,000 feet, right?
Correct.
And so I'm seeing on the plan top of bank, which appears to be right up against the house. Help me understand what that bank is. I guess it's not a coastal bank. It's, what is that?
I think it is a coastal bank. And there's 100-foot setback with the houses within. And that's why we went through conservation for the renovation of the house. This is beyond that. So it doesn't involve conservation.
Right, so I see on the southerly side, the Aries Lane side, I see the coastal bank designation. And then I guess what I was referring to is adjacent or right close to the driveway parking area where it says top of bank. So the pool is
Oh.
proposed and not existing, correct?
Yeah, top of bank is the elevation of the neighboring property. It's actually, the top of bank is on my property, but it's a hillside there.
Yeah.
So that's what that top of bank is.
And the pool is proposed, not existing?
No, the pool is existing. It's been there for 5 years, 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I think all that said, you've got Board of Health yet to go through. It may be a 5-bedroom system, it may be a 7-bedroom system, depending on the outcome of that.
Correct.
So I'd say I'm generally, looks like a nice project, nice structure design. I think understanding what it can be or become, is important. And typically, the zoning board is the last stop on the approval train. So, I believe that the Board of Health approval needs to precede ours. And then the last point I would make and invite Tom to pipe in on this, but I heard you refer to it as a guest house. And again, I think the difference between what you're proposing in a guest house is a cooking facility, which again, your lot being under 2 acres would not be large enough for, but I defer to Tom on that.
Unfortunately, I don't have the stuff. I don't know where the case is. Didn't come to me. I don't have it here in front of me. He could have a guest house if he has more than 30,000 square feet of buildable upland. And, but it would be limited to 800 square feet.
Those are the only questions I had. Thank you.
Bruce, Emily, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
I have no questions. I have concerns. I think that Mr. Cole's principle that he's articulating comes up again and again and again, and it's a bright line.
And you're, Bruce, you're referring to the zoning board being last.
Correct.
Okay. So is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of the project? Is there anybody who wishes to speak with concerns about the project?
If you have a raised hand, I'll bring that person in.
Okay. Go ahead.
SKZ.
Are they in?
Hi, this is Robin Davis.
Robin, Miss Davis,
Yeah.
go ahead. We now is the chance to speak and about your concerns about the project.
Our only concern is the scope of it. We didn't expect it to be so big. We did know that they wanted to put in a garage, and that would be no issue at all, but it seems like a rather large from what I've seen of the plans, it's quite a big impact on the area in terms of Aries Lane being pretty delicate road. And we're just hoping the scope might be a little smaller,
Mhm.
but we have no objection to a garage being put in, et cetera. The guest house is concerning to us. And pool house, I guess. Having bedrooms and all of that impact.
And could you just elaborate on that a bit? We do have a letter in front of us that you sent. And there is some concerns about flooding in the area, and you mentioned the delicate or the difficulty of the road.
Yes, yeah, we maintain Aries Lane up to Signet Lane and our boatyard. And we know that there are future concerns for the flooding issue, but also just maintenance of the road. And the scope of this project is just a little larger than we expected. The Healy's have been great neighbors. We have no issue with them. But we do look to the future and wonder about just this additional bedrooms, they have rented the property on a regular basis, and just the whole traffic situation, the impact of building, et cetera. We were just hoping for a more modest project. That's all our concern is.
Any other questions from the board of Ms. Davis? No. Discussion. I think we've heard Matt and Bruce have concerns, Mr. Healy, that we normally do ask for all the approvals to be done when we grant a special permit, including the Board of Health. So there is that concern. Are there other comments that any board members would make in discussion before we call for a vote?
I think, again, it'd be important to know how big the septic is and therefore how many bedrooms might be in that detached structure. I'm not looking to unnecessarily extend the process here for the applicant, but I do think that's an important thing to get ironed out at Board of Health. Again, as I expressed before, I think it's a nice project. It looks well designed. I would expect to be in favor of it pending that outcome, and any further definition of the second floor, I think, would help us weigh our decision if we choose to continue this until that approval is gained, and would just invite other board members to give their feedback so the applicant leaves with that tonight with a better understanding where the board sits.
Okay. All right. Let me ask for thoughts from, Matt, it sounds like you will make a motion to continue it to get the Board of Health certification of the septic system. But let me just ask for other comments from either Bruce or Emily.
I thought I heard Mr. Evers say that he hadn't seen this. I was puzzled by that.
I have it in front of me now.
How does anything get to us without having gone through you?
It was in the wrong pile.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, but I mean, it had been, you'd seen it previously, you just
Yeah.
hadn't seen it tonight.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that. You know, the one other comment I would make is, and I've pursued this topic unsuccessfully, which is about the quote unquote, how we define the character of the town that we're trying to support as a part of our mandate. And a neighbor comes along and says it feels too big. And I certainly share that subjective sense, But this board also has historically always wanted to say to property owners, it's your property. You know, we want you to be able to enjoy it to the fullest. And so on the one hand, it would feel a little odd to say, no, you can't have a pool house on this. I have to pause for a moment for this gorgeous creature that's come on the screen with this sucking tool in its mouth. I'm just, your baby is beautiful, Jen. Thank you. Those are my only concerns. It does seem, but then, you know, there's $7 million houses off the cliffs in South Orleans. So enough said.
Yeah, what I was trying to get at in the question about, you know, the bedrooms and the comparability to other homes. I mean, is this an area of town where, you know, a 7-bedroom home, if that's what we get to, is common or not? And, you know, there has been a concern expressed also in the Davis's letter about the potential for, you know, large groups accessing it down the road, and, you know, that it could be used as an Airbnb. And I know town select board is considering issues around Airbnb, but that's also another concern that's been raised, that it could be large if it were used for that purpose in the future and host large groups. And let me give you a chance, you know, Mr. Healy, to weigh in here.
Sure. I can appreciate all the comments and from the Davises and all that. We had the very same concerns when they doubled the size of their commercial property next to us. And the same issues were raised with, you know, water runoff and flooding and that sort of thing. And that got approved, and that was a commercial non-conforming building. We're primary residents here, and you know, to have extra space above a garage is pretty common all over town. We have very large neighbors that are visible all around the pond. I don't know exactly what, you know, how many bedrooms they have or what they use it for, anything, but our property isn't unusual in that it's been rented, you know, a month, a summer, which ironically is to a smaller family than we have ourselves. But nonetheless, the other frustrating thing for me, I was a builder in Connecticut for 20 years. I've been before many boards and in 5 different states. I was told to go through this process, to go for the special permit, specifically before we got the engineered septic system. And that was from Tim Brady, who presumably does this. So I'm a little confused as to why, you know, this process is not more clear in terms of if there is a, you know, a more appropriate sequence to go through. And I certainly have done everything by the book, to as far as I knew, to proceed in a efficient manner that wasn't rocking the boat. And it's a little frustrating to find out that, you know, I may have to go backwards now, to go to the health department first and apply for that. Because if I don't get this project in its current form, then there's really no good reason to go for a 7-bedroom. So it becomes this chicken and egg situation. I'm not really sure what the proper way to go about it is, but I'm just kind of airing my thoughts as I'm hearing you guys speak and hearing your concerns, and appreciate them and understand them. And I'm just, I don't want to go spend a lot of money getting things engineered, only to find out that, well, I'm not going to get the, the project as it is. And I just wasted several $1,000s on plans that I'm not going to be using.
Could I just ask, you referred, sir, to Tim Brady, who told you to go a certain route? Who were you? I just don't know who you're referring to.
He's the lead engineer and owner of East Cape Engineering, right
I
here,
see.
right here in Orleans.
I see. Okay.
So I just want to make one point that might be helpful. All the pages of our standard application form weren't turned in with your application. And I don't know if you did it or Tim did it, but the last page of our application form is actually a checklist of all the other boards that should have been submitted with your application. So it goes through and it asks you to enumerate which of those boards are required and if they've in fact been approved. So that's omitted from your submission and should be amended to it. I think the other, maybe first a question back to the 7-bedroom question. How many bedrooms are there in the house?
5 currently.
So right now, I just want to make sure you understand what your application is asking for. It's asking for us to make an exception for finished area on the property with the addition of the first floor of the new structure only. So you are not asking for finished area on the second floor. So if, for example, you go to Board of Health and they give you 7 bedrooms and you want to now finish the second floor, that's additional finished area. So you would either need to come back a second time or ask for a different coverage number than you have now, I believe.
Okay, that was not my understanding. It makes sense if that's the way it is, but that was not my understanding. That not how it was described to me. It was lot coverage under roof. And, I specifically also, to the sensitivity of the neighbors, I specifically left the pool house area as a 1-bedroom structure, that they're 150 feet behind me and up a hill to minimize the impact, any visual impact on their, view to the pond. Just to make a note of that.
And so maybe you are asking for the right coverage number again. We'd have to walk through the calculation that's on your site plan. But again, your plan that you've submitted here depicts just the 1-bedroom, it looks like, in there, the one finished space in the pool house.
Correct. And again, that was sort of at the recommendation of Tim Brady. He said, you can finish it as appropriate depending upon the approvals you get. So I'm a little stuck in the chicken or egg quandary. What comes first, the approvals or the drawings?
So certainly the approvals, and Tom Evers, maybe you could pipe in on the finishing of the second floor, which is not shown in this application, whether that would require.
He'd be limited to 800 square feet because it would be considered a guest house. And it would be under uncommon housing, 16440. So he'd be limited to 800 square feet of space finished.
What is the zone, if you will, for this area from a residential, commercial, conservation perspective?
It's residential.
Okay, straight residential.
Tom, just back to your point, though, that's only if there's a cooking facility there, correct? The way that it's depicted now.
We have a bylaw that calls out guest houses as having sleeping and bathing facilities. And that's listed as one of the options if you have enough property, but.
So it's limited to 800 square feet.
If it's truly going to be living space, but I guess you could do it under a guest house if there's no cooking facilities, but I'd have to look into it.
Yeah, right now the finished area is under 600 square feet. The rest of it's garage and breezeway.
Yes.
So
So I don't know if we've confused you or helped you, but I think you need to get your Board of Health approval and then come back to us and we can continue you. So you're not waiting as long as you did this time to get back in.
Okay, I mean, if that's what I need to do.
do we need to have a formal motion for continuing this case after the Board of Health approval?
Yes, and to continue it, we need to choose a date certain.
Okay.
So I think that's October 19th to give the applicant enough time to get to Board of Health and then come back to us.
Yeah, and we will not be meeting on October the 5th because we won't be able to seat a quorum. Okay, do you want to make a motion, Matt?
I'd make a motion that we continue this case to October 19th.
I'll
Second,
second.
I defer to Ms. Van Giesen.
All those in favor? Well, I have to call a roll call. Sorry, we're on Zoom. So Matt is yes.
Yes.
I seconded, and Bruce,
Aye.
and I vote yes as well. Okay. Mr. Healy, I'm sorry for the confusion. We need to make sure everybody at Town Hall and all those that work with Town Hall know that this is sort of the order and the zoning board comes at the very end.
Very good. Thank you for your time and input. I'll go do what I can do.
Okay,
All right, thank you. Good night.
good night.
Thank you, Lynn. I'd like to rejoin the meeting and chair the meeting from here on in. The next matter for consideration is the continuation of the application on case number 2179, Mr. Herbert Kinney on 2247 Cranberry Highway. Mr. Kinney, welcome back. You have provided a new, since you were here, you received a letter of support from an abutter, Mr. Cushing, and you have provided a notice of Title V approval by the Commonwealth. And you provide us I think this is a new plot plan, which is as equally visually challenging as your previous one. But let's see where we are.
You wanted a larger plot plan. I gave you the original. It's as large as I have. I had it copied, so.
I've got a magnifying glass, Mr. Kinney, and I've been using that. And still, I'm not exactly sure of the issues here. This is a needs more light to boot. Okay, I don't. Let me go back and start this again. Mr. Kinney, do you want to add anything to the presentation that you made at our last meeting?
Well, I had a few comments. There were additional materials that were submitted.
Okay.
And especially after listening to the last hearing, my request for variance is a very narrow request. It is only a request for relief from the 4,000 square foot requirement of bylaw 164-20, okay? To allow me to move into my former dental office as a primary residence. All the structures and the lot are pre-existing to the bylaw change, which was approved last year. One request, you made several requests for additional information. I've tried to provide you the additional information. Now well, I'll get to that in a minute. But George Meservey took this to the planning board and because they wanted more information. I think Tom Evers made the request that it go to the planning board. I'm not sure of that, but then George took it to the planning board so they could discuss it. They met, discussed the bylaw in general regarding the pre-existing lots and structures, in the general and limited business areas in the downtown area. They then had a discussion emphasizing the fact that they were encouraging housing in those areas. And they passed a resolution, of which a copy was sent to you, Mr. Mulligan, I know. And I included that in the packet of additional information that went in that you should have received. But that was a resolution to be sent to the bylaw committee of the town for bylaw consideration at the May 2023 town meeting. And that was to reduce the lot size for a residence in general and limited business areas and in the downtown area to 10,000 square feet instead of 40. In my opinion, it shows their intent and what they meant to accomplish with the original bylaw. Of course, the bylaw doesn't get changed until town meeting votes on it, but you were looking for direction, and I'd say that resolution definitely gives planning board direction to the matter. The septic inspection report arrived this morning. It's about a 36-page report. I had previously talked with the health agent, and she had written me a letter, but some of the information in the letter was inaccurate because the inspection had not been done. For instance, it's a 15,000 gallon tank instead of a 10,000 gallon tank. And there were some other aspects of it. But the inspector considered that the septic system passed. He considered it passed for use. Now, that doesn't determine, that is not a Board of Health approval. But only thing that remains is determination of bedrooms. And it's going to go somewhere between 2 or 3 bedrooms, depending on whether the health agent decides to use the old regulations or the new regulations. Under the old regulations, it's 17 gallons, or it's 93 gallons over a 3-bedroom house. By the new regulations, it's over a 2-bedroom house. But those things and any other things in the report and glitches will have to be taken by the Board of Health, who will have to sign off on a change of use permit, which will go through the building department. The building department is also going to have to look at some plans on the inside if the Board of Health wants doorways changed or something or other. And the building department has to approve installation of a shower facility, et cetera, et cetera. But all these things are things that the departments can handle. The only impediment to their going through their normal processes, which would not be required if it weren't for the 40,000 square feet, is for you to grant relief to me on that one aspect of that bylaw. I also included in the additional information, there were questions regarding an interior floor plan. I included one. And then today, when we got the engineer's report, it also had an internal floor plan, and I included it. So the number of bedrooms is yet to be determined, but it's going to be somewhere between 2 or 3. And the Board of Health is perfectly capable of making that determination. And then the addition, the primary additions in building are to put a washing facility in the bathroom, which would be a shower, and any other construction. We may change one window, one door, but those are all things that really don't affect the zoning board's function, except, I mean, the only thing the zoning board needs to rule on is relief from the 40,000 square feet. Um, see here. As I said, the project requires a change of use occupancy permit. Residential use is already permitted, save for the footage requirement. And the Board of Health and the building departments both have their own requirements and regulations that they will follow once the roadblock is removed. As long as the roadblock stands there, it seems a bit ridiculous for me to spend money to get a bunch of things done, even though I realize customarily you are the last stop, but you're the last impediment to the project being able to go forward. As I said, you should have received, Jill got the addendum out to you. It was taken to town hall last week. And on that addendum, I did go through the 3 requirements for variance and answered all of them, including the hardship situation, what requirements are required, the lack of change in the neighborhood. It wouldn't change the neighborhood 1 iota. And the hardship and benefit to the town because it's more downtown housing, low-cost housing. And my intention is to, if you grant the variance, is to live there myself long-term. It'd be my wife and I, even though my wife spends a lot of time out of town because she plays grandmother and babysits. But I'd live there for a long-term, God willing, and I hope you can act on it tonight, even though everything the Board of Health is doing has not been taken care of. The important thing is that the septic system passed. And everything the building department needs to take care of is just covered by regular regulations. Plumbing and approval of perhaps a window, if Tom will let that be changed to make the bathroom more satisfactory. But the project stands waiting for the approval of relief from the 40,000 square foot requirement. I think you have most of the other information contained on this in the original application. Happy to answer any questions. As far as the board being the last board to go to, it's kind of a catch-22 situation, as the last person was describing. But you are the last step as far as impediments that would block this program from going through. Even the health inspector has said that if the engineer can approve the septic system, the project is feasible. The only question is number of bedrooms in it, and that'll be according to their regulations.
Well, let's just stop here and have a discussion about that issue before we go into others. I don't know if any others have had a chance to view this property, but it's a complicated piece of property. And if you divide the two ownership of the 2 lots, which you get 2 lots now, if you divide the ownership.
The 2 lots are already divided. They've been divided for 25 years.
What I meant to say, if you divided ownership of the 2 lots, it looks to me like a litigation mess, but that's not our concern. But be that as it may, should we have a discussion about this is a follow-up of the discussion. We ought to just stop right here and make a decision before we do anything else. What's the sentiment of the board? We just made a ruling that I understand, Mr. Kenny, that people don't like to, it's all a question of sequencing. So you limit how much you spend, but the tradition has been that we look at final plans and we see whether those final plans are in keeping with the character of the town. And if we don't know what the final plans are, how can we make that determination, frankly? And that's sort of, that's the thinking behind being the last stop. At least I believe that's the thinking behind the last stop. You come in and you say, like the last one, well, we're gonna have a last application, we're gonna have, it's gonna be a cottage, it's gonna be a pool house, it's gonna be filled upstairs, how many bedrooms? What do we approve? Are we approving a 2-bedroom house, a 3-bedroom house? I don't know. Anyone else, any strong feelings on this or comments? Yeah, Mr. Kenny, you want to speak? Sure.
Yes.
We briefly free flow here of conversation here at the ZBA.
Well, oh God, I'm having a senior moment.
You know what? Hold on. You've actually made your point very clear. I'm not sure you can add anything to it.
Oh, I know what I wanted to add.
All right.
There will be no major change in any way of the exterior of this building. And not any major, I want to keep the interior changes as minimal as I possibly can to satisfy the Board of Health for their bedroom decision. But there's going to be no change in the footprint, no change in the exterior appearance, with possibly the exception of one window. There's going to be as few interior changes as possible. The whole object of this project is basically financial hardship, and we're trying to get in for as inexpensively as we can, because we'd like to stay in Orleans. And that's what this boils down to. If this project gets significantly delayed, or so, I'm going to have to make other moves and take other plans because of financial hardship. And we just like to get it taken care of.
I see Mr. Taub has his hand raised. Mr. Taub?
You said, Mr. Chairman, that Mr. Kinney had elegantly and clearly stated his position, and you didn't think he could add anything. Could you state what you understand that position to be?
Yeah, my position, that position is that he's looking to make this into a residence. He needs our approval to go to build it on a smaller lot size and 40,000 square feet of upland. And if he doesn't get that, he's going to stop. And if he does, all he has to do is satisfy the Board of Health, which he asserts to us is almost just administrative. And likewise, the building commissioner has to be satisfied with the structure of a bedroom, which again is administrative, and no policy issues would be at issue. That's his assertion. There's no policy issues, that we're the only policy issue left, and the rest of it's just working to the fiat of the health department and the building department, and he's willing to do whatever they mandate. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Kinney?
I think that's a reasonable statement, yes.
So that's my understanding. So the only policy issue is this. The other are just, he will do whatever it takes, the mandates of the building department, the mandates of the health department, to make this he's certain that they will approve something and he'll live with it.
I will do whatever it takes within reason, okay?
So we're only being called upon to grant this exception to the lot size for a residential property, that this property is going to convert, in a sense, is going to convert from being non-residential or a mixed residential to now being a residential property in a zone that permits that, but on a lot that's under the 40,000 square foot requirement. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's fair. He's looking to make this, it's a currently business zone. It's been a business in operation, and he's looking to rezone it as a residential zone, as a residential property in a business district.
So just to try to move it along.
Well, there's some other issues I want to talk about. We're just talking about whether we continue this until he gets the Board of Health approval and the Building Department approval, or whether we resolve this tonight. That's the first decision we have.
Yes, and I'm trying to address I see Mr. Evers' hand is up, and I would defer to him after I clarify. Go ahead, Tom.
No, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
We're trying to make a determination, notwithstanding the fact that Mr. Mulligan has additional questions. The determination we're trying to make is, can we decide to grant this without the prior approval of these other boards in this instance? Because all we're doing really is approving the change to a residence, to the extent that the owner of the residence now wants to do some building. They'll have to take it before the building commissioner, and to the extent that that will require the Board of Health or septic or anything, that will flow from it. But we are granting, if we are to grant him, we are granting him the variant special permit. I don't know in which instance this would fall, that this be considered a residential property, and that's within our purview, and it doesn't matter. Of course, he can't build or do anything without those boards, but he can't really even appear before those boards if we haven't granted the first request. And at this point in time, subject to other considerations, I'm inclined to do so. I'm complete. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Tom, you had a comment?
I just wanted to say, they don't need my approval for anything. I don't get involved until they bring a permit to me. And they don't, and so the board needs to, they don't need my approval before you guys act. They need my
Understood.
approval afterwards.
Understood.
So I have a question. Jerry, it's for you, I think, since you had the communication with the planning board.
Which, by the way, from Mr. Kinney's approved knowledge, we've shared with all the members. They've all seen that communication.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay, yeah. So the question is, do we have the authority to waive the 40,000 square foot requirement before a change in the zoning bylaw?
Well, we have the authority to give a variance.
We
And
do.
that's what he's seeking, is a variance. Now, I don't know if when I joined this board, I just wanted to raise this. When I joined this board, I was given this material by the Citizens Planning Training Collaborative, which talks about variances and special permits. I don't know if you've all gotten this. If you haven't, I'm going to ask Jen to make copies and distribute it to all of us. And it's a very lengthy but complete discussion of variances and special permits with an emphasis on variances. And it makes the point that variances have a very high threshold to meet, that they should be given out grudgingly, as opposed to special permits, which have a less higher standard. Nevertheless, Mr. Kinney makes the point that the planning board has gone on record to say that they would like to see the zoning bylaw change to allow lots of $10,000, 10,000 square feet, $10,000. That's not a doghouse, $10,000. 10,000 square feet for a residence in the building in the commercial district. So he's right about that, but again, what we have to do is give a variance, because as Mr. Kenny correctly stated, it isn't the law until the town adopts it. But the only thing I want to decide right now is whether we want to send them back to the health department or whether we're going to proceed. Any other, Matt? Matt, please.
So the building exists, the structure isn't changing, and unless necessary, there won't be interior changes. The septic system exists, and the septic system has passed inspection, which will require that report to be filed with us. I don't think that, I'm saying something very different than I said with the last case, but I do believe it is materially different, that I don't believe we need the Board of Health's final opinion on this. Before we talk about variances, special permits, or other relief, I just want to clarify one thing. My understanding is that this lot is not in an R district, it's in the GB district. The relief sought refers to the zoning table that outlines minimum lot size, which in the R district is 40,000 feet. In the GB district, there is no requirement.
Right.
So we have the planning board on record saying that they're going to recommend a zoning change to allow for residential use on lots much smaller going forward.
Yeah.
Anyone that's opened a newspaper in any recent history knows we need more housing in this town. Frankly, I find it an odd location for a house. This gentleman owns the property, he already owns the property, he should have use of his property. There's residential use directly adjacent. I'd be inclined to discuss pathways to make this happen. I haven't heard, nor am I convinced that the property or the application meets the variance criteria, but I'm not sure we need to go there. I haven't found the requirement for a 40,000 foot lot size in the GB district. So I'm a little perplexed as to which path to take here.
Well, there was a presumption, I think, in the planning documents that the planning board thought when they were allowing that, they were sort of didn't focus on it exactly, but they had assumed that the 40,000 would still pertain. And that you'd get a 40,000 square foot residential lot, even though it's in the GB district.
And not that anybody asked, and not that it's important, I'm in favor of the proposal that will change or fix that, but it's not in ink that there's a minimum lot size. So again, I would prefer to grant the applicant his wish to use the property that he owns as a residence. And I suspect that the market will dictate a different use in the future when somebody else owns it. But tonight we're here for the applicant that already owns the property with a structure that's already there and a septic system that's already there. So I would favor finding a way to do this outside and not including a variance.
All right, any other thoughts, Lynn or Emily? Emily, you have your hand raised, please.
I do, yes, thank you. As I'm listening, it sounds like maybe this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like maybe this might be a two-step process. I would say just if the applicant is looking to just switch from business to residential, I would absolutely be in favor of that. And then, and maybe I'm missing something here, but I don't feel that the Board of Health would have any impact on our decision if we're just addressing that zoning change, because it seems to me he would need that step, and then he would come back before us for all of the other any changes, if he would even need to come back before us. But it seems like really what he just needs is that zoning change.
Well, we do have a little leap. We have jumped to the conclusion that the Board of Health will approve this as a residential property with, and then the only thing that's going to be determining is whether it's 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms. That's an assertion by the applicant. It makes sense, but it's not something we know for certain. But I have I sense the board we should continue on with other questions. I mean, we're prepared to act on this without having him sending him back. Is that a fair consensus?
Yes.
Okay, you're very, Lynn, you're on board with that too? Okay, I am too. So let me talk to the particulars of this lot, which do give me some pause over and above the things we've discussed to date. And that is, and I've got my trusty magnifying glass here, Mr. Kinney, and I'm looking at a lot that has 2 lots, which are separate, 2 lots, which rely on each other for existence, basically. The back lot relies on the front lot for an easement to get to the driveway. The front lot relies on the back lot for an easement for the septic. So you've got, that's what I'm saying about the ownership of these two properties are separated. I hope that they get along. You know, is that a misstatement of the facts of this?
I would have preferred to sell the two properties together because the two properties are very wed to each other.
Right.
Okay. But it went on the market. There was no interest, very little interest, especially in this market, which surprised me. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it would be greatly to the advantage of the owner of either lot to own the other one too. But the easements are set up so that the changes in the easements are already stated. Basically, it says he who wants to change it pays for it. And permission to change it cannot unreasonably be withheld. It's a little different in the area of the parking area because you have to provide, the easement says you have to provide other alternate parking area for the commercial property, which was as it was originally set up. But it would be better together, but I'm sorry, I can't wait any. I mean, my situation is such that I've got to make a move. And right now, I've had to take the property off the market, waiting your decision. Once your decision comes in, then I can go ahead and sell the house up above, which is not this property, it's 249. And that will solve a lot of my hardship problems. The easements are all set. The easements are all set as to how to unravel things if they want to be unraveled.
I suppose it's a matter for any subsequent buyer, but I'd be very suspicious of, not suspicious, but I'd really want to check carefully with easements that were granted with nobody on the other side. You're granting yourself an easement in both cases. And I would want to make sure the lawyer understood. In other words, the easements probably weren't ground out over competitive discussion between opposing lawyers. It was a friendly deal for one owner, and I don't want to get into that. It's not our bailiwick, but it does concern me a little bit that we're setting up two lots that are so interdependent and make.
Well, that was done in 1992. And it remains as it is today, okay? They are legally separated, they are filed, the easements are all filed. I mean, that's legally, that's a done deal.
Okay, I understand that. All right, so let me ask, are there any other comments or concerns by the members of the board? All right, is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak in support of this application? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience looking to speak in opposition to this application? Ladies and gentlemen of the board, are we ready to take a vote? Is there a sense here and there's a motion to be made? Mr. Taub, you want to make a motion?
I move that we grant the variance, and I need a little clarification from Matt. Matt, are you saying we don't even need it to be a variance? Did I misunderstand you?
It was more of a question than a statement, Bruce. It was simply that we haven't heard nor gone through nor reviewed the lot and its particulars to see if it qualifies for a variance. So with what the planning board's gone on record with, I would ask Tom Evers if he's comfortable with us coming down with a verdict that we don't believe that the applicant needs relief from the 40,000 square foot requirement because it doesn't apply specifically, and know that ambiguity will be cleared up in a soon forthcoming zoning amendment. I don't want to leave Tom with a mess on his hands, so I certainly don't want to do something that he's not comfortable with, but I'd much prefer to come down that way than walk through the variance criteria.
And I think that that's also important in guiding whoever writes the decision. Because this is one of those instances where clarity as to what we're actually saying and doing and meaning is important. But the sense of the board is, I believe, clear that we want to grant relief in some manner to the petitioner, and we're just looking for the way to do it that is most within existing parameters and least likely to create subsequent problems. And I saw Mr. Evers' hand up again.
I just wanted to respond to Mr. Coles about 16421. It's general business. It has footnote 11, which takes you into the parking part. And its floor area ratio, which in general business is not to exceed 40%. And it's a single story house, so I'm sure it doesn't. And impervious surfaces, except in village center, not more than 75% of the lot shall be covered by buildings and paving. He also meets the 10-foot setback, I believe. So that's where it takes you for lot size. It doesn't really give a lot size. It just gives you floor area ratio and impervious surface coverage.
So if we come down with a conclusion that he doesn't need to meet the 40,000 square foot requirement, are you comfortable issuing a change of use permit?
Yeah.
Or what would you like from the board?
Well, I don't think it's up to me to say, truthfully, but I mean, I'm going to follow the board. I mean,
Well, Matt, let me jump in for a second. You know, Mr. Kenny has taken a stab at responding to the standards for variance, and they're not totally compelling, but they're not also frivolous. I think a case can be made for a variance here. You disagree?
I don't disagree. I'm trying to understand again, Matt's.
I was sort of asking that question of Matt, Bruce.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm asking the same question.
Oh, okay.
I have yet to be compelled that something related specifically to the lot shape, topography, or size creates the hardship that then, you know, is due relief. Furthermore, if the planning board follows through in what it has said it will, a variance is not needed. So we would have issued something that quickly will not be needed. So, you know, variances are very unusual and rare thing, and I just don't think required here. I want Mr. Kinney to be able to live in his house and enjoy it, and without.
How do we, what's the basis of our decision? Not a special permit, it's not a variance, it's a finding that he didn't need to come before us?
Correct.
I don't know that I don't know if we can do that yet until it becomes until the law is changed.
Well, I would feel that way if the use table said 40,000 feet definitively.
Oh, I see. You're saying that it doesn't, there's no limit, there's no limitation.
Right.
Oh, I see. Well, that's neat. That is neat. Yeah, it's silent as to requirement. Well, the legal construction of it, if it's silent, that it would refer to the 40, it would be the 40,000 would kick in. If you create the ability to create a residential lot within an RB and GB, then the presumption is it's a residential lot and has to meet the requirements of residential lots. So I don't think legally that would be, I'm not sure anybody's going to challenge this, but I don't think legally that would pertain. It would still be the 40,000. That's what a residential lot requires. I see where you're going, and I like it, but I'm not sure we have a. Well, let's take a. I don't know how we should vote.
Could we recognize Mr. Kinney?
Mr. Kinney. Sure, Mr. Kinney.
I would only add that when I first discussed this with the planning department, the thought was that the hardship for a variance is the actual size of the lot, which would be covered under the topography of the lot. I did look it up in the dictionary. and it
I
does-
understand, I understand. We understood that. That's what you said in the, it's clear what you said in the.
I just wanted to make sure that topographically that represents the hardship.
Mr. Cole is correct, though, in that the standards for variance should be, and the case law is very clear, standards for variance should be very strictly applied. And this was a lot that was knowingly gone into this size, and now to declare it a hardship for a different use,
When the subdivision was made,
yeah.
because of the amount of land, et cetera, the preference on size was given to the residential portion. That
Right.
was before any of this went in. Basically, that lot also is under 40,000 square feet. So, you know, you could re-subdivide to give, I don't want to re-subdivide, but you could re-subdivide to give more land to the office thing, but all you're doing is putting a line on the ground.
Okay.
It really doesn't accomplish anything to do that because the easements are in place and the easements give use of additional land to the, what we'll call the office property, which is 247.
What we're trying to do is find a legal way to get you what you want.
I understand. I'm trying to be helpful and maybe I'm not. I just.
No, I mean, you argue your case well, Mr. Kenny. I'm basically talking to Matt to talk this out through the variance. I'm more comfortable finding a hardship, which I'd write up on the decision, finding a hardship here, rather than presuming a change in the code. If the code changes, the variance then would not be precedential in any way, it wouldn't be necessary. So it'll be a
Okay.
one-off variance that has no precedential value after the town acts.
Okay.
Jerry, I see it as, I think a variance could be granted. I'm struck, this is residential. I know it's in a general business district, but it is a residence. And for me, logically, that means the 40,000 square foot applies. And I'm okay with granting a variance. And it's clear that the intent, you know, if the variance, there's a very high standard, but the select board's already signaled their intent in this situation.
And would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I would make the motion that we grant the variance to allow the creation of a residential facility in a general business district that has less than a 40,000 square foot lot size.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
All right, a second. Let's call the, what I would do if this passes is that I would write the decision and I'll try to justify it on the basis of the topography and the standards of a variance, understanding that this would be a variance that we create that won't have any, it will have precedential life only so long as until the next town meeting when we all presume that that's going to pass because there is that preference for affordable housing in town. So that would be understanding. Let me call the roll. I'm doing alphabetically. Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Ms. Eichert,
Yes,
Mr. Taub,
Yes,
Ms. Van Giesen,
Yes,
and I will vote yes also. It's unanimous. So I'll write the decision. Thank you, Mr. Kinney.
Thank you. I'm sorry to bring you such a complicated case, but I appreciate what you've done and it solves a huge problem for me and allows me to stay in Orleans, which I've been here almost 50 years and I love it. So thank you.
Mr. Kinney, some of us enjoy the mental challenge of working through these things, so no need to apologize.
Thank you.
All right, the next matter is a continuation of case number 2179, the Housing Assistance Corporation applying for a comprehensive permit for 107 Main Street. Mr. Freeman, are you with us? Or who's presenting tonight?
Mr. Freeman is, I think he's probably just unmuting.
Yes, yeah, no, I had to be joined as a panelist. You just sent that, so yes, thank you. I think you can hear me and see me now.
Yep, let me, before we begin, let me go on the record of indicating what we have received since the last hearing by way of submissions. We have received a notice of the septic system approval from the Orleans Board of Health. We've received an updated request for waivers from Mr. Quinn. We have a notice of a decision of approval by the Orleans Site Plan Review Committee. And we have received a second letter in opposition from Mr. Neil Casanelli of 14 Quail Hill Lane. What we have not received, at least I haven't received, is anything from the Architectural Review Commission. I don't know if there's anybody here tonight representing the Architectural Review Commission or committee, whatever. Is there anyone here from the Orleans Architectural Review Committee? Okay, that's an oversight. I know, I've heard, hearsay evidence, I've heard that the committee had no concerns and approved the design as submitted. Is that your understanding, Mr. Freeman?
Yes, that's definitely true. And what we thought we would do is I would simply introduce myself for the record, Peter Freeman, attorney for the applicant, and have Dave Quinn run through the various things that we have achieved, which really is everything that you had asked us to do. And that does include approval by the Architectural Review Committee. And what we did is we submitted also the updated plans. They requested that we slightly lower the height, and that had been a question also with you folks, and you were going to essentially defer to the Architectural Review Committee. I don't know if their minutes are posted, but we can certainly all represent to you that we were there, and yes, they approved it and they were very happy. So what I would suggest is, if it's okay, have Dave just quickly run through things. Unless you don't feel the need, what we thought we would do is have our architect Thad Semenko show the revised plans, which you now have in that regard. And if you had questions about the site plan changes based on the site plan review comments, we could have Brad Malo show you that or answer questions. The other thing that I don't think you mentioned, and I think there's a letter, you might have mentioned it, it's been a longer night for you, but kind of a long night for me, although I have paid attention. If you mentioned it, forgive me, but we also have the confirmation from the Board of Health that we comply with the standard of meeting the nitrogen removal standard that they want. So they've given A-OK thumbs up on our septic system.
I did mention that, but no, we have that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to hear from Mr. Simasco. I'm sorry, is that how Simasco?
Yeah, close enough. It's Samasco, but I'll take any pronunciation, honestly. But thank you for asking. I think if it's helpful, I could share my screen and just focus on the changes that either the Architectural Review Committee asked us to make, or to some extent the site review. Would that make sense?
That would be great. Yeah, that would help us a lot.
Okay, let me just share. Can you see a site plan okay?
Yes, we can.
So I would say that both committees liked the project and had some nice comments. I would say that were to polish it and improve it, and so it's very productive and nice to have their feedback. I guess I'll start with there's some concern about the Zelkova trees, the two trees here.
Yeah.
About how they'd be impacted by the project. So David Quinn actually met with the town's tree warden and talked through procedures. And we have now on our plans a procedure on how to protect the tree during construction, including initially pruning, then putting down bark mulch and some fencing around it during the construction process, cutting the roots carefully before we excavate near it. So with the hope and expectation of saving those trees. So on our plan was added this note. Also noted on our plan is that any heating and cooling or mechanical equipment not be in view from either Main Street or Quail Hill. So basically it would be limited to the sort of this back side of the building, or or buried up into the roof. Those are the biggest things on the site plan. There's a split rail fence that runs along the property line, and then we had one that kind of came in on a little bit of an abrupt angle, and it was suggested that we have it kind of rounded to follow this nice basin that we have. And so we did that. It makes it a much more elegant and natural looking fence, we think. And then we moved the trees here that are screening this backyard to follow that line. And then there's an access gate for maintenance coming through here. So those are the kinds of pretty subtle changes that were made, but helpful changes. We have on the barn building, what we call the barn back here, were some wall mounted lights that the architectural review committee preferred be a little more traditional, as well as the 4 lights that we had out here in the parking lot. So we changed those over to something that they liked, that were more traditional. I can show you those in a second. But basically the layout of the plan, where the buildings are, their size, and all of that was approved. And I'll talk about the height next. So by the way, these are the more traditional light fixtures that were suggested, and the temperature of the light source, where we were asked to go to a cooler a warmer temperature, which is a lower number, so that the lighting was more residential in quality, which we've done. Onto the height. Let me see if I can zoom in here. I got to get this. Bear with me for a second. So we attacked the height first on what we call the big house, which is the front building.
Yeah.
And we took a fair bit out of it. Actually, I can give you the figures if you'd like. It was 33 foot 6 inches tall from the grade at the street line, as how your ordinance defines it, up to this ridge point. And we were able to lower it, I think 2 foot 7 inches. So it's now 30 feet 11 to this ridge point. So pretty significant reduction in that height. And from the finished floor of the building up to the ridge, which they asked us to calculate, we're at 29 foot 6. And they seemed satisfied that they understood that the building's a little wider than a typical, Greek revival building because of the nature of the project, but they thought that proportionally this all made sense to them. Minor thing they asked us to do, but actually important, was just have this window be proportioned a little bit smaller than we had shown originally. It was also tucked up a little bit tight, and we've lowered it and reduced its size. So those are the kinds of things that we went through. So again, the big house the heights were reduced. They asked us to be very clear on the drawings regarding the heights and locating the details, and we added a bunch of notes so there was real clarity as to what materials were going where, so that you get what you approved, if you will. On the Quail Hill side, again, these sites were shown. I'd point out that the eave height here is only 17 feet, off the ground. So it's not particularly tall for the folks who are approaching the project. And that gable, that's the higher gable is that gable end that faces the street, which has, of course, that Zelkova pretty much right in line with it. Moving along, we put the heights in here that it's 20 feet to this middle building, 26.6 to this building. That's from down here, from the front grade, but actually the actual height you experience is 24 feet to the ridge, roughly, and 20 feet here to this ridge. And then on the barn, which was, I think, the concern, maybe of the chair, and we did also attack, for lack of a better term, the height of that. And we looked at basically trying to get as many inches out of it as we could. It was 35 foot 6 tall. We were able to get 1.5 feet of its height out to be 34 feet. From that 34 feet, again, is from the grade at the front of the building where where the street is. But actually, again, what you experience when you're standing on the ground looking at that ridge is a 31 foot height. But perhaps even more importantly, when you're against the building, it's 8 feet up to this eave line. We lowered the pitch of the roof as much as we dared to have it look proper, but also just helped us wring out a little bit of the height. I think this end view. So these pitches were in 8 and 12. We felt we could get them down to 7.5 and match them up. And again, because when you're walking against the building, you're generating down this area, or this is a landscaped area in here. I don't think the height for somebody on the site is excessive. And I think given how this barn sits behind the building in front of it, we think works well. So those were the major changes. Again, I think it was productive. We had productive meetings. We got good input, and we did all we could to respond.
Well, let me just comment, because I think you responded to a comment that I made at the last meeting. And I think I prefaced my remarks by warning that I was more Philistine than aesthete. But I subsequently have met with individuals who've told me that good design can mask or disguise mass, and that I shouldn't make a Philistine remark about mass overcome design. But nevertheless, I very much appreciate the lowering of the roof, and again, as a Philistine, I'm satisfied. I especially defer to the expertise of the Architectural Review Committee. But thank you, I appreciate that. It's flattering, frankly.
You're welcome. The committee was excellent, and I think it's a better project for their input. And a lot of our job is to disguise mass by techniques like this stepped-in barn, so that it isn't as it feels like it fits on the site, really.
That was the education I received from a third party here, so
excellent.
Appreciate that. Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, Peter Freeman again, and I don't know if you want the screen still with the plans.
Not unless you're going to show us something on them. Yep.
No, not right now. So if I may just ask Dave or anybody else on the team if there's anything else that we need to mention. I don't think so. So without meaning to get in the way of your asking any questions, you and all the board members, but we think that now we know from our opinion that we've satisfied everything, and that the project is even better. So what normally would happen at this time on a 40B application is going over the waivers, and then not tonight because no draft decision has been sent, but we would candidly, without being presumptuous, hope for a vote, naturally in favor, subject to reviewing a decision, which could be at the next hearing. And just so you know, I haven't submitted it because I didn't want to be that presumptuous, but we have drafted a decision, David and I, so we could certainly submit that to you and staff George Zervi after tonight's hearing. So that would be my suggestion as to how we proceed. Again, happy to answer any further questions.
Let me just amend your outline of the procedure by first asking if there are any questions. What I like to do, Mr. Freeman, is ask any questions or comments by members of the board, and then ask any members of the public who may be in support or opposition of the plan, and then proceed from there.
Certainly.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the board, are there other questions or concerns or comments anyone cares to make? Anyone? No? All right. Is there anyone in attendance who wishes to speak in support of the application? I see no one joining us. Now, I should go on record that we have received 2 letters, well thought out, well-written letters from Mr. Neil Casanelli of 14 Quail Hill Lane, who seems to be the most impacted neighbor. So let me at this point, and we have made note of his concerns. I think Lynn at the last meeting raised some of the issues that he raised in his first letter. He raised in the second letter of proximity to his front door, which I don't know there's any appropriate response there or any possible response. But is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Is there anyone out there? Could I ask who's monitoring this? Is there anyone looking to speak?
There's nobody out there.
There's nobody out there. Okay. Well then, we can proceed. All right.
Jerry, can I ask a question?
Please,
Just
please,
having
Lynn.
having read the letter, I'm just reflecting a question that raised in my mind the concerns. And so is there, can any of the houses that are around this project actually see the roof line of the project, the barn, I think it would be, right? Or any of the I guess it's the heating and cooling units that you're talking about. You moved them slightly from their original position. Is there, is the mass of the building visible from somebody's home in the geography, the abutters?
If I may ask Thad to respond as to the HVAC, and either Thad or Brad as to whether a neighbor such as Mr. Neal could see the structure. I would guess that they could. That's not unusual with any situation, including a single family house. But Thad, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yeah, the HVAC units would be screened from the neighbor's view, not just from the public way, but they'd be screened from the neighbor's view. So there'd be no issue with that. In terms of the, it would be almost not really desirable to completely block out the view of the structures. I think looking at structures through the trees and so forth is actually kind of attractive, and you've probably been in parts of the Cape where there's just a hedge and you can't really see what the nice houses and so forth behind it. I think it's okay to see them a little bit. That said, the landscape plan really strategically placed screening vegetation between. We looked at where the houses were and where our buildings were, and made sure we put in some good vegetation between. Maybe initially the buildings will be a little more exposed, but certainly over time, these are evergreens that will provide a pretty good dense screening when they mature. I think the Quail Hill Lane piece has a series of red cedars that screen it, that are going to be good size when that are going to screen it pretty heavily, as well as further up the hill, a privet hedge that, as it can be pretty dense. So I'd say you'll peek at the building through the vegetation, but it's not like you're going to have this stark blank kind of wall that you'd be looking at. Hope that answers your question.
It does.
Anything else, Lynn?
Nope, that was my main question, was just reflecting the concern. The concern was it doesn't quite fit in the neighborhood of single family homes, but that's the nature of affordable housing. It's denser than single family homes. So that's not something that can be dealt with, but in terms of, visibility of it, that's why I asked that question.
Yeah, good. Emily or Bruce, any questions or comments?
No questions.
All right.
No questions. Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
Yep, I'll move that we approve the requested variances for this project.
I guess we should go through each, is it necessary to go through each variance, Mr. Freeman, or can we approve them en masse?
You can certainly approve them en masse, if I may, not meaning to sound picky, but because it's a special permit, it's not referred to as variances, but rather that you would approve the application for the 14 units and approve the waivers as requested.
I do that. I will rephrase my motion to say that we approve the application as presented and the waivers requested.
Thank you.
Stand corrected on the waivers versus variance. I missed that. We don't get many of these, Mr. Freeman, so we're thankful for your assistance.
Very well.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
So we'll call the roll because it's a virtual. I'll call it alphabetically. Ms. Eichholt,
Yes.
Mr. Taub,
Yes,
Ms. Van Giesen,
Yes.
and I also would vote yes, so it's unanimous. Mr. Freeman, your proposed decision would be helpful to us. And have you stated that we have to come back to vote the decision itself?
Well, there's two possibilities. And I will certainly submit the draft, so thank you for that. You can close the hearing, you have voted, you can close the hearing, and then under the regulations, to be totally clear, you have up to 40 days to sign the decision, to go over it, obviously, and sign it. We would hope you wouldn't take 40 days. But in case you had questions about it, we would want to participate, in the discussion, which I will be, again, totally candid. Many town attorneys I work with say it's perfectly fine. You can't have new evidence, as you know, or testimony after the hearing is closed, but to allow us, and if the public wanted to participate in the condition, if you want to talk about it, at the next meeting, which would be an open meeting, it doesn't have to be a hearing. That would be my preference, that we can participate, as could the public, at the meeting where you deliberate on the actual language in the decision. If you think it's better to keep it open so that there could be the back and forth of discussion, again, some towns feel as though that's the better way to do it. I view it as the first option, that it's perfectly fine to close the hearing. So I give you both options because, I want to be totally candid. That is the status of the law, to my understanding.
This being a sort of unusual 40B with the level of enthusiasm, support for the town, and the not complete absence of opposition, but relatively small opposition, I'm not sure we need to keep it open. I'm not sure that anything's going to come up in the near term that hasn't already been raised. I don't envision any issues that aren't going to be determined by the contracts that are already in place with the town and the various parties. So I'm prepared to close the proceeding and then just go to the decision. Our usual process on most decisions is we just file them and sign them and file them. But so the idea of having them discussed in open meeting is fine with me also. If that would improve the process or be effective in the process.
Sure, I think that makes sense if you vote to close the hearing, and then I don't know when your next meeting would be. It would be just an agenda item, and maybe it would be exactly the way I submitted or minor changes. And obviously, George or anybody else that you want can review it, as well. And it's certainly kosher to have back and forth with me and staff.
I think town pride and personal pride will require some changes, Mr. Freeman, but.
Yeah, I certainly understand that. I didn't mean that would likely happen. But again, certainly perfectly permissible that, staff could go back and forth. Naturally, we wouldn't communicate with the board separately outside a public meeting, but with the staff, we can to go over, a draft decision. I think that would be the preferred route, in my opinion, to go over it at an open meeting where it's reviewed, whether it takes 5 minutes or an hour, and then get it in the form that you're satisfied with and, adopt that decision.
Our next meeting is in 2 weeks, and then we have a gap of a month because we have to miss a meeting for want of a quorum. We usually meet every 2 weeks, so we can try to get this on the next agenda. We have a rather full agenda that night, but maybe we could start with this because I don't think it's going to take a lot of. Well, we'll see. We'll see what I shouldn't say.
Yeah.
Why don't we shoot for the next meeting, and if not, it would be in 6 weeks.
Okay, that's fine.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all very much, and again, I appreciate the feedback that you responded to from the last meeting. And I think that I agree with the Architectural Commission. I think it's going to look better. I think the lowered height on both buildings as again, a town with only a 30-foot limit, any give back was appreciated. Appreciated.
Well,
And
thank you.
likewise, we appreciate the process with the entire town leading up to this and with your deliberations and questions. And we thank you and we look forward to the project.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Good evening.
Good night.
Thank you. Take care.
Anything else to come before the meeting?
Good night.
Good night, Tom. Do I have a do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I'll make that motion, but can I ask you one thing? Which
Sure.
it might be in my emails that piled up in August, and if so, tell me, are we rescheduling the meeting with Council Ford?
Good question. Good question. What we have to do is, well, I've proposed some very minor changes to the rules and procedures. And Tom, Mr. Counselor, Town Council Ford, Town Council Ford has said that he would go over them with me. There's not much to go over. I don't think there's anything controversial in the changes. And then they have to come before an open board meeting on a scheduled agenda to be adopted. The only thing that I really am anxious to adopt is the right now they require Emily's signature on every decision. And it seems they have to be verified by somebody on the board, of course, but we're asking poor Emily to jump through hoops every few days here, and I feel badly about that. So I'm changing I propose that either the chairman or the clerk sign, but I'm really thinking maybe any regular member could sign the decision, but I'm going to talk about that with Councilor Ford. That's the only issue I think has any real concern.
And then-
So we have to schedule that for a meeting. And then we have the issue if he wanted to respond to, he wants to inform us about litigation. And then we have to discuss the issue that Mr. Todd wants to discuss. And we have not settled on a date. One of the problems that we have is we have so many cases backlogged that it looks like we're scheduling 5 cases or more every night. So I don't know, we went off a little earlier tonight than I thought. I thought we'd be going later than this. But so it's a question of timing, Lynn, and then losing the October 5th. As Jen has suggested, we may have to schedule because these deadlines are running on these cases, we may have to schedule a meeting, another meeting in October, other than the 5th.
So our discussion is gonna end up probably being after we get through the backlog, is what you're saying.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
We can probably do the rules and procedures because I think that's going to take 2 minutes. We can probably do that in a regular case. But
not-
as for the report and the executive session, I think we're going to have to take the time to get through these cases, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Emily or Bruce, any questions or comments on that?
I had thought we were going to get an update on the 2 cases in litigation. I don't think there's any urgency about that, but
Yeah, Mr. Ford informs me that nothing's happening, so there isn't any, they're both in limbo, or waiting, they're waiting their slow plod through the calendar.
okay.
So there's nothing urgent. And there's just your discussion of general principles and general philosophy, which we want to get to. But I don't think, again, it's, unfortunately, we missed August. That was a problem. We shouldn't have done that. We should have given up our vacation, but the whole thing was in chaos after the change in leadership and in losing our secretary. I should report to you that we're still deficient on some minutes from our meetings. We're up to date on all the cases that have been heard up to tonight. So that's good, with the exception of the marijuana shop. And I'm asking Council Ford to write that for us. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? A motion to adjourn?
Yep. I'll make a motion. Let's
Second.
adjourn.
All in favor? Thank you all very much. Good night.